Hi, this is Scott Garibay, and today I'm going to be talking about the Orville episode 4. And this content will contain major spoilers for Orville episode 4. And then in addition to that, this content will contain a lot of specific talk about faith and religion. And I did want to talk about that just for a second. So I understand that a lot of people don't like to talk about politics or faith. Or religion, religion, faith, I'm using those pretty synonymously. So one of the things that I wanted to talk about is those are, politics and faith are absolutely crucial to my life. I have a degree in political science. I watch politics like most people watch football. I read a lot about politics and it's incredibly important to me. And my religion, I'm an evangelical Christian, is incredibly important to me as well. So it really is always going to be in my content. But I understand that that's not everybody's jam, and a lot of people get upset by hearing those things. So I just wanted to be clear that I label my stuff clearly so that people can choose whether to watch it or not watch it. So just wanted to throw that out there. And, this is America. Everybody gets to choose what they want and what they don't want. And I think that's okay. If you're like, hey, I'm not going to listen to that, or that's not what I want to listen to. So I just kind of want to explain why it's in my content and why I take the time to label it the way I do. Thank you very much for that side note there. Okay, so let's talk about the Orville episode 4. All right, so one, I just can't rave about the Orville enough. It is absolutely fantastic. Without a doubt, my favorite new show on television. Really, really special, unique. It's incredible. All right, so episode 4 is Captain Ann Mercer, First Mate Kelly, and then I'm not sure if her name is Mercer still because they're divorced. There's Alara in there, there's Bortus in there, there's the doctor, there's the pilot, there's the navigator, and there's the robot, right? It's a great cast, really, really awesome. I'm really digging it, right? So that cast are out there, they're doing their Star Trek-y thing, they're in the Orville, their ship, and they come across this gigantic ship that's just floating in space, right? So they actually approach it, and it looks like a derelict ship. They board it, and then they find inside that the ship is so large that the people inside are essentially living in a biome. They're living in a biological environment that has been created, but they're not aware of it. They're not aware that they're living in this biome. And there has become this new fight between the people who live in the biome, the floating ship, that there's something beyond. So there's these religious zealots who are like, hey, you need to listen to the words of our Creator. And the Creator says, this is our home, we make this special, and we don't leave here, right? And we don't talk about what's beyond the borders of our home. That's our religion, right? Well, there's other people in the society who are saying there's something else beyond. What you're seeing, what you can touch and feel, there's something beyond that. There's something more, right? And now, this is fascinating because I really believe that Orville is a 100% compliant Hollywood perspective, both in religion, both in politics, everything. This is a Hollywood show, right? But what's really interesting is, and so to me, the analogy that they were trying to present is like, look at these religious zealots, look how ridiculous they are. Like, of course there's something beyond the spaceship, right? If they would just open up their eyes and, take a ship beyond their own ship, they would see it. It's so obvious. We just came from the outside. Clearly there's more, they're not, they're just, they're believing in a fallacy, right? And so from the Hollywood perspective, I think the writers of the show are like, oh, evangelical Christians, so silly. They believe in something that's ridiculous. But the thing is, what's funny is the analogy flips on them, because in the analogy, the religious zealots are the one that are saying there's not anything beyond, which is exactly what Hollywood is saying right now. So I do understand that Hollywood overall has a little bit of range when it comes to faith and religion, but I don't think they have much, right? A perfect way to explain this is, I think the Hollywood line on religion is, this is it. This world is all there is. There is no afterlife, right? And most people in Hollywood would be like, one, I think it's almost impossible. I can't think of a single evangelical Christian Hollywood producer, or even, it's hard for me to even think of a Hollywood actor who's an evangelical Christian, who's ever been in a blockbuster or anything major. There's no evangelical producers. And by the way, I invite correction on any of these points. If I'm wrong, I'd be happy to find I'm wrong on this, right? And everything I say, I love. One, I want to thank everybody out there for listening to my content specifically, and I really love the interactions when people ask questions, or when they give me better ideas, or when they give me corrections as well. So I really appreciate that, right? So, and then a perfect example of this is Hugh Hefner just died. And he is a perfect example of the Hollywood perspective, right? He is quoted as saying, "I consider myself a spiritual person, but that doesn't mean I believe in the supernatural." Well, what on earth does that mean, right? Well, I know what it means, because I've studied all of the religions, and so what it means is he believes, oh well, we're all energy, and energy returns to energy, and and at the end of the day, it's man. Worshipping man is God, okay? So that's a way that you can believe there's no afterlife and still be very spiritual, which is like exactly what Hefner is saying, right? So within Orville, you see a situation where they're saying, hey, where they're putting the religious zealots in the position of saying exactly what Hollywood says right now, that there's nothing beyond, right? Now, to their point, there is a lack of sound evidence that there is anything beyond, okay? And so I can't prove to you that God's real, right? I can't prove to you that Christ was raised from the dead. I can't prove to you that Jesus Christ loves you and he died for you and he wants to reconcile you to God immediately, right? I can't prove all of that, but I will tell you right now, even if you're not an evangelical Christian, there's a ton of evidence that gives credence to the belief, okay? And then the other thing is, once you are an evangelical Christian, it flips, right? And it's all you can see. It's all you can see, right? It's because it just becomes so obvious that Christianity is real, and that what we believe, that there clearly is something beyond. Okay, I just want to talk about that a little bit today, because as I was watching Orville episode 4, I had sympathy for the religious, for actually the people who were talking to the religious zealots, and they had no proof. The ship was still closed. So when you looked at the sky, you saw the sky, right? You couldn't see the stars. And by the way, the name of this episode is "If the Stars Would Shine," right? And it was a great episode. It was a great title. It was a really neat, and also I want to say, I love that Hollywood is making these stories that we can talk about, that the Orville is presenting these incredibly in-depth stories where, both the evangelical Christians and secular humanists could really take something away from this show. It's amazing. And I will say right now, that is an incredible honoring of Gene Roddenberry. I think what Gene Roddenberry really brought to television is, let's have the conversation. Let's have the conversation. And it worked, man. That, if you could say anything about Star Trek, it's that people have loved talking about it. There's more talk about Star Trek than even exists. There's probably more reviews right now than exist in the main source material, right? It's really fantastic. So here's the thing, right? Once you're an evangelical Christian, you look at a secular humanist and they're saying, this is it, this is all there is, right? And you see so much evidence that that's not true, right? So once you're an evangelical Christian, you begin to read the Bible, okay? Now, the Bible is precious to us. This book has been around for 2,000 years. Now, there's some tangible evidence that it's true. One of them is that it absolutely has, captured the hearts and minds of every single continent, right? It is the number one book in the world, bar none. There's no book in the world that more has been written about, more has been talked about, more has been sacrificed for than the Holy Bible, right? All right. But when we get in it and we read it, right, what happens is when you're reading the Holy Bible every day, it will say things like wisdom is precious, right? And then you learn wisdom is precious because you weren't wise, right? It will say, there will be there will be wolves among the sheep. And then you go to church and you find somebody as deadly in your church as the most non-saved person. There's a non-saved person sitting in the pews with you, right? Exactly like the Bible told you there would be, right? And the Bible tells you, the love of Jesus Christ will be with you and it will give you strength. And there are days where you can feel it, where you know in your heart that Christ is right there with you, and that you're confessing to him and you're saying, hey, I love you, Lord. Please, save me from my sins. And I want to be with God in heaven when this life is gone. And you can just feel his presence. It's so real. And so I feel, as an evangelical Christian, the way Captain Ed Mercer felt, talking in that cabin to the family who didn't believe there was anything beyond. He had already been there. He had already seen it, right? So he's thinking what they're saying is ridiculous, and that's how I feel. I look at secular humanists and I'm like, you're out of your mind, man. You have no idea. The other thing is, I'm a Christian, I'm a husband and a father, right? I will tell you right now, J. Scott Garibay, John Scott Garibay, me, I would be incapable of the role of husband and father without the wisdom of the Word, without, Jesus Christ, through the Word, through 2,000 years of wisdom, through a protected book, and through his genuine, real Spirit, the Holy Ghost in me. I would be 100% unable to do 25 years of being a husband and 25 years of being a father. I would have failed. And you know what? I will tell you right now, I know people who have been there who didn't have that support, and the things that they tried to do in those roles did not work, right? And me and Leanne, we have never attempted to grow closer together to each other. We based our marriage on the love of Jesus Christ, and the two of us, every single day of our lives, have tried to grow closer to Christ. And since we were going toward the same target, since we were both trying to grow toward Christ, we were benefited that we grew closer together naturally as husband and wife, and that we were more in sync as mother and father, right? And I will tell you right now, so this is why I care so deeply about the Orville. I watched the Orville episode 4, and it made me incredibly just thankful for the love of Jesus Christ. And so episode 4 of the Orville helped me understand and gave me it didn't help me understand, I want to be clear. It reminded me of why my evangelical Christianity is so important to me, why the love of Christ is so real to me, right? Because I've seen it. I live in the kingdom, right? Now, what does that mean, right? I pray to God. I say, hey, I have this problem. I'm lifting it up to you, Lord. I'm giving it to you, right? This person over here has this problem. I'm lifting it up. I'm giving it to you, right? And then I see answers to those prayers, very real answers to those prayers. And I also see no answer to those prayers. I see a no, right? God answering no, right? And the Word prepares me for that and shows me why God would say no to some of my requests, right? And it just puts the whole world into structure, right? I go to church on Sunday, and there is a man there who works for a global manufacturing organization. This man makes a lot of money, right? He's picking, when I arrive at church, this dude who has better things to do is picking up trash in the yard, that's blown over from the Taco Bell that exists next to our church. This guy is picking up dirty Taco Bell wrappers and putting them in a bag, and then he goes to work on, Monday and Tuesday and does designs that are used all over the world, right? And he does that because he loves Christ, because he's humbled. He's humbled by Christ, right? I know Christians who have had children die. I know Christians who have had children who are sick. I have known Christians who have had children that have been captured by drugs. And in those moments when they have the deepest cuts of their lives, where there's nothing but pain, I see those people say, "Blessed be the name of the Lord." And that, that's how we feel. Like, if you have read the word, if you have prayed to God, after you've come and you said, "Jesus Christ, I cannot save myself. I have sinned against you. Please save me. I want salvation. I repent of my sins, and I want to be in heaven with you. Please give me your sacrificial blood that allows me to be reconciled to God." Right? After you do that, you can't see anything but the kingdom. It's so clear and it's so obvious that we are just like the crew of the Orville, where they're trying to talk to these people who are saying there's nothing beyond. And they're like, "You're crazy. We just came from the beyond. We see it so clearly." And so that, and I really think it's amazing that the Orville, is the thing that reminds me of what it's really like to be an evangelical Christian. And it's amazing. And I will tell you right now, never in my life did I think that something that Seth MacFarlane would create would point me to the value would remind me of the value of my evangelical Christianity, of the love of Jesus Christ. We live in strange times, man. If you're not watching the Orville, watch the Orville. Take care. Bye-bye.